All right, we've got the recording going and screen share's going. This is all you.
All right. Should we give a little bit of background on Amy and what we're doing here? This is our Canva webinar. We're super excited about the opportunity to partner with Canva and to have a Beyond the Game challenge for NASEF, specifically connected to the CIF championships. We have so many teams participating in California, and James just is a rock star in managing that tournament and keeping everyone going and on track. But one of the things that we always emphasize here at NASEF is the beyond the game aspect. What kind of career skills can you develop connected to esports? And so we came up with this fantastic challenge, which is around designing a logo for this current season for your esports teams. And then a second aspect to that is design a commemorative logo for this current season, spring 2026, for the overall CIF championship event. And so Amy is here to help us out and give us some tips on what should we be doing with Canva to do these logos.
Amazing, Claire. Well, thank you so much for kicking off this session here this afternoon. I appreciate those of you joining here live. As I'm going through the session, please let me know if you have questions. I keep the chat up to kind of monitor as I go. However, if you're catching this recording, thank you for also tuning in, and I will be sharing my contact info. So if you don't get your question asked when you watch the recording, please let me know how I can continue to be a resource. So, as Claire mentioned, we are partnering. We are so excited about this partnership, and also kind of just allowing your students to begin to develop those graphic design skills and, to Claire's point, practice those real world lifelong skills that are going to stay with them well beyond their time on your esports team. So I just want to thank NASEF for this partnership, and we are going to dive right on in here. So I do want to say hi to you all. I am your California neighbor. I live down in San Diego. I used to be an elementary teacher myself before I joined the Canva education team. In my role, I traditionally and typically train teachers on how to use the Canva education platform in their classroom. But this is super fun to think about Canva education beyond those classroom times, and allowing students really the opportunity to get in, design, and create something custom for your esports team as well as for this upcoming event. So I just want to say hi to you all. Oops, sorry, I forgot to mention my contact info. Claire and James, I'll update the slides. Sorry, I pulled this from a conference and I don't always give out my email, but for your schools, I'll update this slide so that y'all can have my email as well, just as you and your students are designing if there's any Canva questions. I'm realizing though I did not throw in my slide that I was supposed to throw in about Canva education being 100% free. So if you didn't know, Canva education is free for K to 12 schools and districts across the globe. And by free, I mean truly, authentically free. It is free in terms of everybody within your district, or if you're in a private school or charter school network, everyone can get a free Canva education account. The accounts are free, the setup is free, all of the SSO and LMS integration is free as well. So if you know that your school or district has Canva education set up, that is amazing. If not, you can, and again, I will update my slides. I apologize about that. Canva.com/education. Um, and then you would just hit this middle button here to kind of set up your individual school or district community here. Again, it is not a free downgraded version of an account. It is essentially a free Canva Pro account that other people across the globe pay for. You get it for free, plus access to our educational template library. So that is kind of Canva education. Again, please check please sign up and check it out if you don't already have Canva education set up for your school or district. So here's a quick overview of today's agenda. I just kind of want to highlight when we're thinking about a logo design, kind of going through the big, kind of chunking it up, that design process. I also really want to hone in on logo research here for a little bit, as well as some logo psychology, and then want to throw in some details to consider. And again, I'm going to kind of be demoing and playing along, so feel free as we go throughout this session, even if you're watching the recording, to kind of play along with me if you have your Canva education account open, so we can play and create together. So let's go ahead and kind of dive on in. When you're thinking about the overall logo design process with your team, we kind of wanted to chunk that up into a few steps because it doesn't just happen in 10 minutes. So one of the biggest part when it comes to creating a custom logo, not only for your team, but also for the California, I hope I'm going to say it right, California Interscholastic Federation Esports Initiative event. Is that right,
That is
James?
Yeah,
a
that's
that
pretty
is a
close. I would
mouthful, huh?
say you could shorthand it a little bit and say the CIF Esports Initiative would be fine. And
Amazing.
for you being down in San Diego, there's about 17 schools in your region, high schools, everywhere from Escondido all the way down to the border, that are already participating in our initiative this year, just in at a quick glance. So there's a lot of high schools in that region already, just throwing that out
Okay,
there so you know.
James, I'm going to put it out there. If you are in the San Diego region and you want me to come train your students in person, let me know. I am happy to coordinate that and drive over. Again, training would be free. So again, I will update the slides with my email. Folks can get in touch with me. That would be awesome as well. If you just want to watch the webinar, I totally understand. But for those of you who may be local high school teams, let's get in Canva and design together. So the CIF Esports Initiative event logo. So essentially, there's two logo design opportunities. All the things that I'm going to kind of be walking you all through pertain to both. So again, just kind of wanted to break down the process so you and your students feel comfortable kind of going through designing and iterating and in that custom creation workflow. So I know some of this is kind of like client. You'll see the word client. I wanted to keep in that word client because I think it's important for our students to think about, okay, if this really were my job, how would I go about researching my client to be able to figure out the most important aspects of their brand to then custom create a logo off of that. I know that it might be more specifically in this use case scenario, an individual high school esports team or the event logo for the upcoming event later this year. So I know client, but I wanted to use some of that real world lingo. Then you're going to want to research your competitors. So what other esports logos have already been designed? Then even though we're Canva and we're all about digital designing, we are huge fans, especially when it comes to logo creation and ideation, of hand sketching ideas in what we call thumbnails. Just kind of short, quick, fast ideas to get the ideas out from our brain and onto the page quickly. And then you'll also be able to iterate and create within Canva as well. But sometimes pencil to paper is the best way to kind of get brainstorming. Then you want to take a moment to kind of examine logo philosophy, things like symmetry. And again, we're going to kind of go through all of that. You're going to want to make lots of iterations with the goal of creating a few options. And then ultimately, you're going to choose your final logo depending on if you're creating for your individual esports team or the larger CIF Esports Initiative event. So just kind of thinking about this process here again, here at Canva, you're going to know us as a visual communications platform, but it's also important to kind of think about kind of brainstorming some of those thumbnail logo images by hand first, and then what it would look like to kind of translate that into the Canva editor. And I promise I'm going to go through this, but that's just kind of like an overview of our process here. Again, I know I'm kind of front loading a lot, but when it comes to creating a logo, there is so much importance placed on quick recognition that the most important step, or the most important step according to Canva, is doing your logo research. Okay. So here at Canva, we believe a great logo is where substance is greater than style, or substance over style. And the major point here is that substance comes from research. So I wanted to provide each team kind of like an overview of some critical questions when they're thinking about the designing and logo kind of starting process. So let's kind of, again, I'm just going to quickly go over these. I know we want to get into the actual designing, but I think it's important to set this up and set the scene as to why it's so important to do this research ahead of time. So, of course, students are going to be researching to find an understanding of what makes the client or event unique. Again, client can also equal esports team, or the upcoming CIF esports event. Okay, so I kind of scaffolded these questions here on the right hand side. What does your brand or event do better than anyone else? So when you're thinking about your esports team, what makes your team unique? And what are you all crushing when it compares to other esports teams? What is the best compliment you've gotten from other customers, maybe other teams, other coaches, or when you're thinking about the CIF event, maybe event attendees? What three words best define your offering? Again, both from the lens of the esports team and the CIF Esports Initiative event. What does the team like best about working at that company, event, or being a part of that team? Yes, Claire, I love that. Bringing in the school's mascot as well. And then what brand or event accomplishment are you most proud of? So maybe something as a team you've already accomplished, and that might be a part that you want to highlight and emphasize in your esports team logo. So truly understanding the client, team, or event means understanding their audience. You want to create a logo for your client or your team that is both relevant, useful, and original. Okay, so that's kind of like the first part, is researching your team and the CIF Esports Initiative event. Next up is you're going to look at competitors. So you are going to examine the broader industry and similar clients, teams, and events. It's important to recognize which logos are working and which don't. Okay, so which logos, when you look at other esports teams, are you like, wow, I'm totally drawn in, I'm hooked. That team looks so fun, engaging. I know a bit more about their team, what their school mascot is, whatever that team's logo is trying to communicate, you are truly kind of brought in to the design. And the other thing, the opposite lens you want to think about is, are there certain trends that are working? And then maybe things that aren't working in other logos that maybe you want to steer clear of. Okay, let's hop into, I'm gonna pause here, and I am gonna just kind of go over getting started from the Canva homepage before we kind of go into logo philosophy. So just give me a quick second here to kind of get started from the Canva homepage. So If your school or district has Canva education set up, this is what it would look like when you and students come in. Again, remember, I'm not a member of your district or your school, so it's going to look slightly different on my page when I'm demoing here, but all of the same buttons besides this kind of title here. So when you come to the Canva homepage, you're going to want to select this templates button up above. And you can do a couple of things. You could search for logo, and you'd be able to kind of begin to sort and filter. Obviously, you can add in keywords here. You could also use these two drop-down options here. So category is just kind of the category of the design project, but you could also do something where you are sorting and filtering by graphic design style. So maybe I want something minimalist, and I could also potentially type in esports, or maybe I could do mascot. Oops. There's also different types of logos. So you could do logo, you could say text logo. If you're looking to perhaps create more of a text heavy logo for your esports team or the CIF Esports Initiative event, you could also create, excuse me, type um, so from there, you're going to see a ton of different logo options to potentially either start from or spark some ideas. Oh, yes, and Claire, yes, NASEF also has a bunch of esports templates on our dashboard that people can see after they log in. They're mostly flyers and posters. But like I said, you can type in logo and then esports, and there are esports logos here.
So I
Okay.
guess I have a question. What if they wanted to work on remixing or adding to a current logo? They might already have a team logo, so maybe they, say they have their logo for their team. What
Mhm.
could they do to still be part of this as like their competition? I think it's more of like what could they do for this year or to commemorate their thing? Because they already have their brand logos that are very much their team. So what are some maybe ideas where they could take this year, their current logo, and maybe augment it or add to it or make it like a this year commemorative sticker, I think would be the way to go on that.
Oh, I love that. Okay, thanks, James. So if you already have an existing esports team logo, my recommendation, depending on how that logo is currently saved, and file type and all of that stuff, is I would recommend having students start by, again, selecting the templates button up above on the Canva homepage, typing in logo. You can clear out this. Essentially, all you're looking for is this option here to create a blank logo. From there, perhaps what students are looking to do is upload an existing logo that they might already have. So again, I know that this is not esports, but just bear with me here. Pretending that this is my high school esports logo. And then from there, so again, I would recommend potentially uploading that and then kind of remixing or potentially bringing in, again, they could create from scratch on top of that. Maybe they're looking for, when they go to the Elements tab, a year banner. Let's see. There's a lot of Lunar New Year. Let me do 2026. Again, I know that this is like New Year options, but let me see if I can get something. more general, where again, they're bringing in existing elements. Maybe they want, a banner like this, where they'd be able to add this on top of the existing esports logo. And let me zoom in so you all can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. As you can see here, in Canva's element library, we have graphics, stickers, emojis, pre-made elements that students can use, add to a existing design, or again, they could start from scratch from any logo design, and then they're able to just click on it, add it to the design. In order to kind of play around with the layers on the page, essentially all you need to do is click on any element. It doesn't matter which element it is, but you need to click on something to tell Canva, hey, this is what I'm trying to edit. And then from there, in your horizontal toolbar towards the right-hand side, you're going to see a position button. Once I select the position button, students can select layers, and then they can kind of drag and drop and reposition layers on top of one another. The other thing I like to point out about a lot of our graphic elements is when you bring them into the Canva editor here, you are usually, not always, but most of the time, our graphic elements, you're able to kind of customize the colors of that particular element. So perhaps I don't really want something that's kind of in this red family, and instead I want maybe something that's bright pink or purple or whatever it may be. You can also click on this add a new color once you've selected one of the hex code color circles up above. You can then select this add a new color, the addition sign with the rainbow ring around it. Students could play around with the entire color spectrum here on Roy G. Biv, and the really cool thing is as I'm playing with it, you can see it update in real time here on the design. If they had a specific hex code color, they could also type that in. Or if, again, they had their team's esport logo already kind of embedded on top of the page, they could use what we call our color picker here. To me, it looks kind of like an eyedropper, and they can hover over any particular pixel and kind of pixel match that color without having to know the exact and type in the exact hex code color here. Now, this banner, even though it just looks red, it has a lot of various shades. So the other thing that you can do is once you've kind of, here, let me choose a totally different color. So let me play around here really quickly. And then once you've kind of selected this, I could make this one a little bit darker. And again, I'm just going back to this original purple that was selected, and then I can go to add a new color and maybe make it a little bit lighter. And again, we're just kind of going through and manually manipulating this here until I get to the last hex code color. And now I've kind of got this updated banner here. Where I'm able to then move and manipulate all of my items. Again, maybe you want the text to say something specific. Maybe you have a team logo or motto or a team chant or a team inside joke or whatever it may be. And that is perhaps what a student is overlaying on top of the existing esports team logo. The other thing I want to point out beyond being able to custom edit a lot of our graphics is that all of our text you're able to edit as well. So again, I'm going to bring this down just a little bit so it's easier to see. Oops, I forgot this is a graphic. I apologize, and not a text box. But if you're designing, you can always hit the letter T. and a text box will appear. Maybe you want to say like 2025 to 2026 team. And from here, any text box, you can play around with the font. So maybe I wanted more of a script. I can play around obviously with the font size. From here, I can play around with the font color. Perhaps I want this to be white and kind of stand out in that way. You can also now apply gradients to fonts as well. So again, by selecting this text color box, just similarly how I was updating that banner before, you're going to see all kind of the existing document hex code colors come in. You can scroll down, there's default colors, but we also have default gradient options. So you could add a gradient to this text. Let me see if I can find one that will be easy to see and show up. And then once you add a text gradient, again, thinking about accessibility, when you go back and that that gradient is here, you can hit this button to kind of custom edit this gradient. So I could change the style. Do I want the gradient to be diagonal, kind of across from darker to lighter? I could add in more gradient colors and kind of play around with them. So when we're talking about customization, you can definitely customize this to ensure that your font and your text is kind of standing out on your page. From there, especially when it comes to logos, another advanced text setting that I just want to make students aware of is this letter and line spacing. So it's a great way when you're kind of playing around with logos. Again, you have to click on the text box to highlight it and then play around with the letter spacing. You can also play around with where the text is in the text box. And then I just want to show this last option, text effects, because when you hit this text effects button, you're able to either add kind of like a shadow or a lift to your text. You can even curve the text. So I could play around with this curve to kind of mimic the arc of this banner and now have the text be arced at the same angle as the banner element that I've selected. Again, you can play around with the arc of the curve here. Let me see if I can get that. And then you can make it hollow, add a splice. So many really fun ways to kind of customize that text and make the text stand out for their particular design. The other thing when thinking about kind of creating or adding things to an existing logo is simplicity is key. So you already have an existing team logo. Thinking critically about what you're adding to ensure that the original logo is still visible and still readable, and that what you're adding kind of enhances it. You're still able to see it, and that it's not distracting from that original team logo. So you want to make sure that it's kind of like complementary in design style, perhaps using the same font, similar colors, that sort of stuff, because when we're thinking about a logo, it's so critical to be able to grab your audience's attention. But if all of the different elements look totally disjointed, it's not necessarily perhaps going to grab their attention, and instead make them kind of perhaps overwhelmed and not be able to kind of understand that critical message you're looking to communicate. Few more things I want to show you all, and then we'll kind of wrap up and pause for questions. Is when you have a logo open in the Canva editor, in the file drop-down menu, you can go to settings and you could click on this options here, show rulers and guides. So if you wanted to, you could potentially kind of create guides where you're kind of custom ensuring that how you're laying out your space fits with the kind of options when it comes to printing. So if you're going to turn your logo into stickers and all of that sort of stuff, it's just really helpful to kind of see that kind of guide be overlaid on top of the logo. So everything is centered, symmetrical, and aligned properly. The other thing I want to point out is you can click and show margins, which again is going to be critical because the logos are small. And if you're turning these logos into stickers, you want to make sure that nothing is kind of going over the margins so that everything in the logo design would be printed. Again, that is File, settings, and then show margins. You could also potentially show print bleeds, but that might be only if you're kind of turning whatever logo is designed into a sticker that's then printed. The other thing I'd like to point out underneath the file drop-down menu is this is where students who are creating and iterating different designs of their logo options can check for a design's accessibility. So again, file, underneath this settings, you're going to see accessibility, and you can have Canva use some AI to check your logo's design accessibility for three main things. First is typography. Second is color contrast to ensure that everybody would be able to kind of read and comprehend text based on the colors that you've selected for your logo. And then the third is alt text. Now, in order to add alt text, I can click on this add alt text. We do have a suggest for me. And Canva's AI will use a little bit of alt text there, and then I can save this. And I want to add alt text for this. Again, I'll click suggest for me, a purple banner with a gradient from light to dark purple and a subtle pink outline. So I'll click save. And now when it comes to my entire logo design accessibility, I have no design accessibility issues. So really want to point that out as a hidden gem and kind of opportunity to ensure that logos are designed so that all audience members can access the content. A few more things to kind of quickly go through. Remember, you're going to want to rename your project so you can find it again in the future. You can click right into the middle here when you have the Canva editor open in the middle of the header bar. You can always open the file drop-down menu and put in the name of your project there as well. Highly recommend to rename this, especially if you open a logo template to kind of get started. It's going to be saved ultimately as whatever logo that individual kind of who created that template saved it as. So again, you'll want to go in and rename it.
So quick side note as we're kind of looking at these, we're looking at these being the round circle templates for the stickers that are going to be printed as part of this for the competition. So when they're sizing these, should they overlay a circle template or should they just start with that as their baseline? 'Cause I think it's in the templates, right? Circle logo template probably, I think was the one that was linked somewhere.
Yep. I apologize. Yep.
No,
Circle
you're
logo.
good. Well, it's fine. I had to go back and double check. So will they want to worry about the bleed edge on that as well for printing on the circles? Like, should they try to keep the design clear for a little ring? Does that bleeding edge show there for print?
Yep. So when they open the circle logo and again go to settings, if they select show print bleed, it doesn't really change much, to be honest with you. They're just going to want to make sure that the circle logo is within this larger margin. So again, by going to File, Settings, and Show Margins, because each one of these is going to be 500 pixels by 500 pixels. And then from there, as long as my understanding is, as long as the circle logo is within the margins here of this 500 by 500 square, it will be able to be printed in a circle sticker. I hope that makes sense and I'm answering the question. So essentially, from here, this circle, I would never want it to extend beyond this dotted line here of the margin.
Yeah, that does. I've had to print stickers before, and that's one of the things I want to mention. Just is a thing you have to watch out for that print bleed. So if you're telling your students when they're doing this, don't plan on their design to go 100% to the edge of that circle. Like you want anything important to be a little further in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, from here, in when a student has kind of their design ready, and again, I realize there might be some like voting happening and you're sharing things kind of electronically first before like the actual printing happens. But I just want to show you all that no matter how you're looking to share or publish a student's design, you're always going to find all of your sharing options in the top right in the share drop-down menu. This is where if I were a student, perhaps I could add in the name of my teacher and it should auto-populate. Again, this is only if you're in a setup Canva education district. If you're not, and you're kind of like an individual teacher, and then you invite your esports team in, because you don't have Canva education set up district-wide. This might not be the case, but they could still type in your teacher email and share it with you. Just so you and your students know, Canva as a platform is private by default. So in order for you as the teacher to be able to see a student design, they either have to invite you in, either as a viewer, a commenter, or editor, or they would have to put a link out and maybe they're pasting or emailing a link back to you. Again, this really is dependent upon how your school is set up with Canva in terms of the best way to share. And maybe they want to say, okay, I want my esports coach to be able to comment on this. And they would copy that link and maybe email it to the esports coach. Rather than directly inviting them. Again, it's the same thing. It's just what's easiest for how your school is set up with Canva. If once you're into a student's logo design, you'd like to eventually kind of print it, again, you're going to select this download button. And depending how you're printing first, maybe you're printing on paper and having like a visual and voting and all that sort of stuff. You're going to select PDF standard, PDF print. If you are printing, downloading to then send for stickers to be printed, most likely you're going to probably choose either a PNG and you might want to compress it, but or an SVG. But it does kind of depend on where. I know I'm saying a lot of it depends, but it does kind of depend on where you're sending the stickers to be printed. I know it kind of varies, but all of the options, no matter what you're looking to do with a student's final design, will be in the share drop-down menu in the top right of the Canva editor. Okay. What questions do y'all have? What did I miss? Claire, please hop in. Oh, she had
She
to
had
drop.
to drop off. So I will go ahead
Yep.
and cut recording here. So then we'll just post this up later. And then any questions that show up, we could always add them to the team guide.
Okay.